Hey everybody, welcome back to Steve's Garage. I'm Steve and here we are in the garage. It is Friday and it is 10 after 3. Been another busy day. I'd like to thank everybody for sharing all their nice comments and all that stuff. I had said, on the video, a couple of videos back, that I only had 599 watchers or subscribers, but it was strange. It was at 599 for a long time, like a couple of months or so. And so I thought maybe YouTube lost me in the algorithm or something had happened there. And so we made a couple of videos last week and put them on. And we've got 56 new subscribers in a week. So thank you very much. For like 655 right now. I had a couple of comments on the four banger. The Model A engine is 4-cylinder, and it's called the 4-banger as a nickname. And a couple guys were like, 4-banger, no matter what you do to them, they still suck. So I get what you're saying. And they said you should put a flathead motor in it, a V8 flathead, and that would look awesome. But I have a couple other cars with and a truck with a V8 flatheads in them. Love them. But I wanted to keep this thing true to the form that I was thinking about. And I always reference back to when I was a kid. There was a movie called, I think it was Around the World in 180 Days, or Around the World in 80 Days, or The Great Race, or something like that. I forget exactly what the name of it was, but it had all these antique cars in it that were all like from the brass era. And they had, the brass headlights, or some of them had brass side lights here, and they had the big convertible top with the fringe around it. And one of the cars was bright white, another one was bright yellow, and they had red and black like this. And even as a little kid, I'm like, wow, this, something special about these cars. I don't know what it is, because I didn't appreciate it at the time, but they were just the form of them. It really got to me, even as a kid. And of course, as you grow up and you go through life, you find out what those cars were, and you see what they are. It was all like 20s brass era steamers, that kind of thing. So getting back to this car is 1928 Model A up to here, the cowl. We removed everything in the back here. I actually lengthened the frame because a Model A is 112 inches the wheelbase. And the wheelbase is from the center of the front wheel to the center of the back wheel. And if you've ever heard the term wheelbase before, that is the length of your, where you're touching rubber to the ground. So a Model A is 112. We extended this to 126 inches. So we gained, 14 inches on the car. And, I referenced back to, the Duesenberg. And that's why in these videos I say Ford Model A / Duesenberg, because this car, and here's a model that I have, was really my inspiration, So if you look at this model and you look at the rear end, that boat tail, that's really what I was trying to achieve when I built this thing. And I also wanted to blend in some riveting, where rivets would show, because again, I love everything Howard Hughes and, all the different airplanes he built, and, like riveted steel, where you see the rivets down the sides of the planes. And it's just that whole era was like really, they went so over the top. And now here we are with our, we build today, we stamp it out, and it's, thin gauge steel or tons of plastic now, and this in the 20s, the 2020s. And so this is gone. So I wanted to replicate that and build something that looked like that era. So getting back to the 4-banger. Now, Henry Ford had the Model T before the Model A. The Model T engine looks exactly like this. It's a 4-cylinder engine, but it only had 20 horsepower. And, it just didn't have the strength. When they built the Model A, they got it up to 40 horsepower, which was pretty good for, back in the era. They were still figuring it out. Everything they built, they had to make from scratch and engineer. And, make cast sand molds. So they had these this cast iron works to make these. And if you can't appreciate it, you're missing out, because it's truly amazing what Henry Ford did for all of you and myself. We're driving around, and it wasn't that long ago. It was 100 years ago, basically 90 something years. So this engine, from the Ford company records, right here. This isn't them, but I wrote it down just so we know that between 1927 and 1931, which was the Model A era, they built 4,830,806 Model A engines. So that's 4,830,806. So they almost hit, they were heading for 5 million, pretty damn close. And most of them were made in America. Some were made in Canada, and some were made in Europe. And these engines got 25 to 30 miles to the gallon. Still do. There it is. 25 to 30 miles to the gallon. So back then, what was gas? Nickel, 10 cents. I don't exactly know. In 1927 to 1931, gallon of gas had to be 10, 15 cents tops or less. And so these guys, how many people probably didn't drive more than 25 or 30 miles a week? Maybe 100 at most if you were driving, to work somewhere or whatever, where you had to travel a little bit. And so on a couple gallons of gas, so these things ran for, less than $1 a week on fuel probably. So how cool is that? The other thing about this engine is top speed, 65 miles an hour. Not bad. Model A go 65 miles an hour. And back then, they were just building roads. They didn't like you and I drive out on the road, and they're beautifully paved. And, of course, up here in New England, we have our potholes and all that stuff here and there. But for the most part, we are so spoiled with roads and highways. We don't even know. Back then, it was all mud, and, they're just trying to figure it out, building roads and infrastructure and all that stuff. And if you lived in a tiny town and there were only a handful of cars in it, they weren't worried about you and your cars. They were still driving horse and buggy. So quite an era to really sit back and ponder about and think about what these people had to endure to get to where we are now. You know what I mean? So this is 201 cubic inches, and it's only 40 horsepower. The Model T before this was only 20 horsepower. This is 40 horsepower. And through gearing, the great gearboxes in these things, go anywhere you want, climb hills and all that stuff. So this engine, I did swap over to 12 volt. I have a 12 volt alternator, and I have a 12 volt coil, and basically, that's about it. We have a starter solenoid, 12 volt battery in the back, and I have the same starter on it, because these starters can take 12 volt all day long. They love the juice, and that's it. So what I'd like to do is fire it up for you. It's cold. I don't get out that often with it. I just got it on the road this past week, and I've been out driving on the road and all that stuff. But today it's pretty cold outside. Don't want to be out there in this thing. So let's fire it up. Then I'm going to show you, putting the hood on, what it looks like completed, and a couple other things I did to it. And we'll go from there. All right, guys? So without any further ado, let me reset the camera up so you can see it. We'll go from there. Hope everyone's having a great day. It is Friday, and we're going to have a good weekend. St. Patty's Day weekend. Put your green on. Go easy on the green beers. Let me get this zoomed in a little bit. And what I do with this engine is, as you can see, it's cold. What I do with this engine is I choke it one time, and then it fires on the second shot. And but sometimes it fires on the first shot. So we'll see what happens. I'm going to turn my my battery. I have a disconnect in it, so I'm going to connect the battery. Get my model off the back of the car so it doesn't fall on the ground. Battery connected. I'm gonna open the garage door. Don't fumigate. All right, here we go. Make sure we're in neutral. Turn the gas on. Turn the throttle up just a hair. Here we go. Fired right up. So there's my low idle. So it fired right up on the first shot. So I believe the 12 volt definitely gives it a stronger spark, turns it over faster, definitely helps it out. And there it is. So you can see we're charging for 13 volts at low idle, so it's charging the battery. There's my shift knob a friend of mine made for me. All right. So we'll shut her down. And I'm going to shut the battery off for the weekend. Unless we have a really great day tomorrow, I'll take her out. But I can't, I'm not, so here's my disconnect. So it's a little guillotine switch. And now the battery, there's no juice going to the car at all. So, it's a good safety feature. You know what I mean? This is the wood I put on the back. I don't know if I showed you guys that completed. But, I wanted that look like if you put your bag on there, for your loading things before you load things into the trunk. It's just cool stuff. So let me set the camera back up. I hope you're enjoying this as much as I am, because I'm just really amazed how this thing came out. It's pretty cool. Even though I built it myself, it's quite a crazy accomplishment. All right, so now I'll show you the hood going on. Cool. All right. All right, I have these belts. Driver. And these are basically just belts like you and I wear in our pants. And I have, this is P and P, passenger side. These are belts I bought on Amazon. Pretty basic. So I want my, looking through, oh, not like that. So I'll put this in here. Put that like that. You know, when you're left-handed, everything you look at looks differently than the rest of the world. I'm always like, is that the right way? Lefties. There's those straps. And again, talk about the era, having straps on the hood. They use leather straps. I mean, again, you have to consider what they were building the car, but did they know that they were building the car? Because they were from the era of horse and buggy. So their brain is used to seeing a carriage and horse. Everything's got leather straps, and so they're in their mind, they're like, how are we replicating the horse and buggy with this whole motor thing, gasoline? It's really, I don't know, I find myself just daydreaming for hours about what these guys did, and they had nothing to go by. So you have to take that all into consideration. Making nothing from nothing. It's like telling us, build a UFO. Well, I don't know how to make the thing float. How do we build a UFO? So where do you start? Probably start by making it look like a car, right? All right. So there's that side. That's the car with the hood. You gotta love that. If that doesn't get your pulse going, check your hearts, people, because your heart's not pumping. So there it is, the Model A engine. Fascinating. To me, it's fascinating what Henry Ford came out of thin air with. And then, of course, in 1932 was the V8 flathead that everyone loves a V8 flathead. And that's why if you look up on eBay or Cars for Sale, the 1932 Roadster is the holy grail car, the most sought after car, and the most expensive one to buy now. And because that's the first year that Henry Ford's V8 flathead came out in. So that's what makes it so attractive. So anyway, everybody, happy Friday. Happy St. Patrick's Day. Have a great weekend. Thanks for coming back. Thanks for all the great comments and everyone telling me how much they enjoy the car. We got so much more coming up. All the car shows are coming up. I got a big one we're going to be in May. And then they have that in the Wilbraham Hill Climb. Wayne Carini is going to be there. And it's just a great event. This Wilbraham Hill Climb. We'll go over the whole thing when the time comes, but they used to use this hill in Munson or Wilbraham, Massachusetts, to test cars in for endurance to make sure they can get up hills because it's this crazy hill. So anyway, have a great weekend. We'll talk to you soon, and thanks again.